Welcome to Doron Yoga, everyone. Today we're going to look at Navasana, the boat pose. It's a really fantastic pose from the Ashtanga primary series. It's kind of mostly known as a core work. They're really beyond the core. It also strengthens the psoas, because the psoas is what keeps your legs up, and it even works the lower back. It's a relatively safe pose. We'll look at a few things to make sure how to do it correctly and sustainably, as well as we'll look at beyond the Ashtanga classic, how to modify it, and even some other fun variations. So stay tuned, watch till the end, because there are some not common things that we'll try to show you. Okay, here we go. We're going to dive right in. Thank you, Kasha, for joining us today. Going into the Navasana basics. So the nice thing is that Navasana is very modifiable, and everybody can start somewhere, which is what we love. Not to leave anybody excluded. So we're trying to have the spine as tall, as straight as can be, though if you round a bit, that's okay. We're keeping the belly tucked in. This is like a belt supporting your lower back. So really that's very, very important. If you can and you remember your Mula Bandha, lifting a bit the pelvic floor, that may help as well. Okay? So the first step will be here, will just be to keep the hands on the ground and lift the legs up towards 90 degrees. Okay? This is it. This will already work your back, will already work your legs. And if you can, from here, you'll try to not slump the back, but rather, again, lift and straighten. Perfect. Thank you. Next variation, we'll do the same thing. Just bring the hands behind the thigh. And this helps both in keeping the legs from falling, as well as you can see, it really helps elongate the spine and protect the back. So if anybody has some back issues, I highly recommend doing this variation. Moving along, we can release the hands, and this really is a little bit of a jump and makes it a bit harder, and the hands will be stretched forward. The full pose is very similar, but working, and this may take years, on straightening the legs. Hands can be straight. Some people like them a bit higher up. This is the full classic Navasana pose, and the ultimate, not classic Ashtanga, arms up. This is just super challenging. Kasha looks pretty like she's really working hard, but she's got a smile on her face. Thank you. Take a break. When you take a break, I love to squeeze the knees into the chest. Again, this helps elongate the spine, and it gives a bit of a release. One thing that people sometimes forget to do in Navasana is breathe. And when we don't breathe, we're actually more susceptible to injuries. So make sure you breathe. Make sure when it gets too intense, you take a break, especially if there's sharp pain. If it's just challenging, work through it. But if it doesn't feel right, take a break. Navasana, technically in Ashtanga, we do 5 times, and then we do 5-time lifts in between. There's this second part to it. So we're going to look at it separate, and then we'll put it together. The lift, technically, the hands are beside, and we just pull the knees up, lift the hips off the ground, and everything lifts. Woohoo! Rest. This is far from accessible for most people. For those that have the strength but complain that the arms are too short, actually that's not true. I've seen people with short arm lift. One thing that you do is you actually round a bit in the back, and then you lift the knees, and it kind of makes all your body shorter, so your arms, no matter how long, can work. Another thing is to get arm extenders. Arm extenders in many yoga studios, and maybe even in your home, there's blocks. You place the hands on blocks, and this will be an elevation exactly as Kasha was showing, and help you lift up. What if you still can't do it? No worries, there's always a solution. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on lifting only the hips. Even if you just lifted the hips, the whole upper body is working, the core is working. This is fabuloso. Do this better than nothing. If you can add on to this one leg up, hallelujah. Stay here for a breath or two, and then lower, and then you can take a break. And then you can switch the cross of the legs, lift up, and do the other leg up. And hold for a few breaths, and then release. Okay? So remember, if you can't look for an easier way that builds up towards the full pose. The option 1 was lifting the hips. Option 2 was with lifting one leg at a time, and doing that until it builds enough strength to lift up, maybe with blocks, and eventually without blocks. Okay? Let's look one time at Navasana as a complete pose. And you still have energy?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go right away. You know what? We'll scan really quick the variations to Navasana. So option 1, hands down, legs up. Option 2, holding the thighs. Option 3, arms forward. Option 4, straightening the legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breaths. Cross the legs, plant the hands, lift up, rest, and again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully you're counting slower. Lift up and rest. So we do this 5 times. 5 times for 5 breaths, the Navasana, and the lift only for 1 breath. No need for longer than that. Okay? So that's the Ashtanga classics, and that's really all you need to know. But I promised you a few extra variations that are fun and really build nice your core, and just really add some extra spice and challenge. So from the regular Navasana, wherever you took it, we're going to go towards the full, maybe not straight legs, but in that direction. We can start lowering down, and we lower down part way, and this is pretty challenging for most of us, or we lower down 3/4 of the way where the shoulder blades are still off the ground. This is crazy hard, so some of you will cheat and lift the legs up higher, and when the legs are up almost here, it's easier at first, and then when the legs are here, this is much harder. The hardest variation, arms over the head, 3, 2, 1, and then come up and rest. Again, rest, just squeeze the knees into the chest. And so, again, it depends on you. You can build it and hold it longer. You can hold 5 breaths in them halfway, 5 breaths, lower down, hands to the heart, and if you still have energy, 5 breaths, arms reaching over the head. This actually really builds nice the upper core as well, while the Navasana builds a lot of the back and the psoas. Last thing, we're going to look at revolved parivrita, right? And it's nice because not only the Navasana, right, the core has many layers. From the internal layer, the transverse abdominals where you're squeezing the belly in and that activates it, to, of course, your rectus abdominis that's working. But we also have the obliques, and we want to work a bit the sideways. So let's see how that works when we twist. We're coming up to Navasana, and we're adding a twisted variation. So we're opening to the side. The left arm, in this case, opens. The other arm is on the legs, can hold the legs or be free from the legs. And this is nice because it's the core and a twist. We'll take the other side so you can see from the back what it looks like. And it's really great. It even works your shoulders. Coming back to center and release. Remember, in all of these, it's not easy, but constantly try to notice. If you're collapsing in the back, try to lift up. It's almost like you have a cable connected to your sternum and pulling you up. And the belly tucking in helps support your core. So again, a fantastic pose. If you're doing Ashtanga, you probably already are doing it. But I teach this in every class, whether Doron Yoga or Ashtanga, as part of our playtime. If you don't really know much about it, check out our teacher training manual, which is just a yoga manual. Great for anybody, teachers or not. Super highly recommended. And maybe even one day, come down here. Come down to the Doron Yoga and Zen Center at Lake Atitlan and practice with us here live, where we can really see each different person and what their specific needs are. Thank you. Thank you all for practicing. Until next time, namaste.